Hello, hello. This is Elizabeth Tripp, your host of Nourish the Soul talk radio show and podcast. Welcome, welcome. This is your opportunity to really sit back, relax, and go on an extraordinary journey of self discovery. This podcast has really been designed to help you get out of your head and back into your body, your sacred body temple, to really feel what it's like when you pause, slow down, and come back into deep presence. So we have another amazing solo show for you all tonight. This is the freedom beyond perfectionism and really embracing our true worth. So I'm super excited about this show. Just this past month, I feel like, and even, months we'll say, or for many of us, even this past year, it has been super full of challenge. Does anybody else agree with that? There's just been all different sorts of things that have been showing up individually and personally for myself. But I know as I talk to other people too, they're sharing, they are coming up against some really unique obstacles, some unique things that are in the landscape of their life. And I really want to reiterate that right now, our life, it is an extraordinary time. It's a unique time. And maybe people say that every decade we're in, or, every, century we complete, that was a unique time period. That was like nothing we ever experienced. But truly, right now, from what I perceive life to be, from my perspective, our landscape of life is changing minute by minute. Even the last few years, from where we stand today to how we understand ourselves as it relates to technology and internet and the ways we connect. So much is changing so quickly. And it feels like things are really coming into our field much, much faster than they have in my perception of my life in the past. And we're being called, we're really being asked to decide each moment that we're aware of ourselves. Who do we want to be? How do we want to show up in this life? And how do we want to look at our life? What perspective do we want to hold? Because truly, it all comes down to perspective. Everything in our life is based off of how we see it, how we understand it, the way we interpret it. And, we could look at life today and we could say these challenges, these obstacles, these shifts in technology and connection, in the ways that our political and economic landscapes are changing, the way our children's lives are changing, that it is bad. We could absolutely hold that perspective. And we could also say it's good. And each of those perspectives are valid. They are true based off of how we perceive this experience, how we are choosing to look at this world. So we don't want to take away the value of your perspective because it does have value. But what we want to offer is that as we look at things from a standpoint that everything is perfect just as it is, because today's topic is beyond perfectionism, right? That everything is perfect just as it is. So much can come to surface. And what I first notice when I start to use this mantra, and as I've begun to really more deeply invite it into our life, into my life, is we automatically become present as we slow down to the judgments we pass upon our life experience. This is bad, this is good, this is right, this is wrong. I wish this were to be different. I want this to be fixed or changed. And this information, it is so, so powerful because it informs us of our perspective. It informs us of where we stand in this current moment within our life and how we are choosing to look at circumstance. And if we really slow down even more, and we invite within that perspective, that mantra, everything is perfect as it is, and we feel through this invitation of acceptance and noticing these judgments or even these fears, that we can start to kind of tap into a field of existence that says, you know, everything is in divine order. We start to tap into this field, this omnipresent field, that everything is in its place, is as it should be right now. And our mind, it says, but how? You know, my tire's flat. I don't have any money in my bank account. My partner and me are in conflict. My kids cutting up at school. My boss is being so hard on me. And as we slow down and we start to see through this invitation of acceptance that there is within the circumstance that we may want to automatically judge, automatically want to change or try to fix, put effort into and force and want to control, actually a beautiful lesson, a really powerful opportunity to see a new perspective. And if everything's perspective and there is a potential of infinite perspectives, then we have before us in this practice, in this allowance, the possibility to transform our life in a mere second, the possibility to shift out of the hard in the bad, in the, giving up, in the fight, to a field of possibility that allows for more love through this acceptance, through this deep awareness, to this presence of why is the challenge here for me? And love is one of, if not the most powerful force in the universe. And in my opinion, what I believe each and every single one of us at our cellular level has been designed out of. And if that's the case, then how could love ever steer us in the wrong direction? How could love ever put pain in front of us for the point of us suffering? Love wants to learn through you, I, we, us. Love wants to express itself through our eyes, through our experience, and understand what it's like to see life through us, individually and collectively. So my personal practice in this last week, and it feels like even more in this last year, has been to really humbly meet that mantra. Everything is perfect just the way it is. Because maybe some of you know this or you don't. I'm sure maybe a few of you have read my posts, maybe some of you haven't. But I have had a lifelong relationship with perfectionism. And that lifelong relationship, by nature of what perfectionism is, and we're going to talk a little bit more about it today, has had, yes, significant hardships. And all by my own design, all by my own choosing. And to invite such a mantra, such a powerful perspective in, I have witnessed myself soften and let go and get upset and get frustrated and feel sad and be afraid and accept and invite and allow all these facets in. Because a majority of what this inner perfectionist me used to do was judge these parts of me that made me so human and unique. And I want to talk about how common this is tonight on today's broadcast, to judge ourselves, to feel afraid to really be ourselves because of that, and therefore live in a smaller existence because we are unable to invite a more grander perspective that is just a tiny bit outside of our field and yet still here for us to experience if we allow it to be. If we can, within ourselves, be open to a new understanding of ourself and life. So on that note, let's take a quick break. And when we get back, we're going to dive into beyond perfectionism and really embracing our true worth.
Are you a conscious co-creator? Are you on a quest to raise your vibration and your consciousness? I'm Sam Leibowitz, your conscious consultant, and on my show, The Conscious Consultant Hour Awakening Humanity, we will touch upon all these topics and more. Listen live at our new time on Thursdays at 12 noon Eastern Time. That's The Conscious Consultant Hour Awakening Humanity, Thursdays 12 noon on talkradio.nyc.
Are you a high-achieving, growth-oriented leader? Are you interested in developing your authentic leadership while creating a healthy, inclusive workplace? Hi, I'm Dr. Mira Brancu, host of The Hard Skills on talkradio.nyc at 5 p.m. Eastern on Tuesdays, where we discuss how leaders develop the hard skills needed to make a greater impact. We interview experts, have live coaching, and tackle these challenges. Listen to The Hard Skills on Tuesday at 5 p.m. Eastern on talkradio.nyc.
Are you a business owner? Do you want to be a business owner? Do you work with business owners? Hi, I'm Stephen Fry, your small and medium-sized business or SMB guy, and I'm the host of the new show, Always Friday. While I love to have fun on my show, we take those Friday feelings of freedom and clarity to discuss popular topics on the minds of SMBs today. Please join me and my various special guests on Friday at 11 a.m. on talkradio.nyc.
You're listening to Talk Radio NYC. Uplift, educate, empower.
Welcome back, everyone. This is Elizabeth Tripp. I'm so excited to be here. Thank you all for tuning in. We are talking about freedom beyond perfectionism and really this invitation of a deeper acceptance of ourselves, of what life is presenting us, a then allowance of what is, a softer way of being, a sense of surrender and release of control that so many of us I know struggle with. I know I was just sharing in the previous segment about a little bit of insight into my journey with perfectionism. And I have so many clients that struggle with this as well and are seeing it in a new light because perfectionism actually is beautiful because it holds so many amazingly powerful soul lessons. Just speaking about them, how to let go of control and surrender, how to deepen our self love, how to, really accept things as they are, right? How to really embrace the flow of life and the invitation of support from the universe, even though sometimes it can feel intangible, right? That deeper trust that we start to build. So perfectionism offers these soul lessons to come alive in our life, but often through the struggles that we bump up against when we seek control, when we really, seek certainty, when we are very attached to, a specific way of doing things to give ourselves that self confidence that we're doing it right because we're embarrassed to do anything wrong. So we're kind of heading into here like the telltale signs that you're a perfectionist. And I kind of want to introduce this because I want to get everybody present. What is a perfectionist like? And truly, when I notice this tendency, because I'm very aware of it, because I'm aware of it within myself, and I'm in this really beautiful deconstructive phase, and it takes some time. I remember my mentor telling me that this this programming of perfection is actually one of the most challenging programs to deconstruct, to dissolve, because ultimately it requires that we really dissolve these big ego conversations that we can have. So, a perfectionist, well, telltale sign is, do you fear failure? Are you afraid of making a mistake and doing things wrong? Do you set really high standards for yourself and maybe even for others? And when you fall short, do you tend to be harsh on yourself and beat yourself up, leading to guilt or disappointment, right? Who's ever gotten angry at someone because they didn't do it the way that we expected them to, right? And then gotten mad at ourselves for getting angry. And can you be quick to judge both yourself and others? Being wrong to you also feels very uncomfortable. It can almost feel like, you cannot rationalize that your point of view could have a loophole in it. And when people disagree with you and have a different perspective, it's super easy to get triggered to be defensive, you know? But my point of view is right. How could I be wrong? Oh, remember, we just invited you to the invitation of infinite possibility through infinite perspective, right? And so we want to really be leaning into this because a lot of what we are seeing in the landscape of our life is a lot of these programmings of this inner perfection is coming outward into our family dynamics, into our social and cultural dynamics, and bubbling over into the landscape of our life, as we know it, politically and economically and education, all of that. So a perfectionist often gets very set in their ways and they can have inflexible thinking, like it takes a lot for them to pivot their track. like, okay, we're going here, 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 but then it starts to rain, and it's like it's almost like it's a lot of effort to then turn and change direction and come up into another avenue of possibility of what we could do. And that's just a very simple example, which adds to like frustration when life doesn't go as planned, when we don't meet, you know, what we envision, right? And another really big characteristic of a perfectionist is they thrive on praise and validation. This is something that, truly got me extremely far in life and yet hindered me equally as much. Because when I got this praise and validation, whether it was over my physical appearance or my success or, you know, yeah, just how I appeared to the outside world, it was reassuring me that I could do things right. And it's really bolstering my self confidence, but it was a false sense of myself. It was very ego inflated. And that can be really hard for somebody to want to accept and recognize. Um, but this can mean, and I continue to even embrace this on myself because it's very natural, that we might overanalyze how other people perceive us. You know, even today, I set some very clear boundaries with people in my life. And by the nature of who I am, I can hear the ripple effect that my boundary has within them. What's going on? Is she okay? How come she's changed? I wonder if something is more happening for her. And those are all okay, but because I can hear it, I can sometimes slip into this kind of over analyzing my own action. And I have to go, whoa, come back, pause, come into my heart. It's okay for me to set a boundary and to allow people to think whatever they want about me, to allow them to have their own opinion, and for me to continue to recognize my worth is not dependent on what I do or don't do for other people and how much time I give or not to them. And that's really huge for a lot of people because often perfectionists struggle with emotional stress and feelings of inadequacy. And definitely that was something for me that I really, really had a tough time with. And, I've been on this 8 year long journey. Some of you know or don't know, but in 2015, I went through one of the most, you know, emotionally crushing experiences. I was just around 30 and I had been planning my life with somebody. And suddenly that plan that I had in place and, was thinking was going to be my future, just the rug got ripped out from underneath me. And I just emotionally went into a downward spiral. I was really hard on myself, judging myself for being the cause or not fault. And I had spent many years not even realizing how much I was trying to fix things and change myself for the other person to be happy. And I met someone in this journey when I was at rock bottom who quite literally helped me change my perspective of myself and transform my life. And it's why I do what I do today. And I'll tell more about that journey and the nature of what has transpired since then. A little more in probably next episodes. There's more to come, but it had to happen. That experience had to happen for me to get here. And I think that speaks to the nature of, yeah, everything is perfect just as it is. But as a perfectionist, man, we can just be like, we can almost feel like the world is crashing in when we come up against these challenges. Or we find really great ways to cope that, check us out and get us out of presence and get us busy or, you know, um, help us, really disconnect or disassociate from this emotional roller coaster we're on. But I think you guys are all getting the point, and chime in. Certainly, leave me a note, send me a message, share on the live. If it's safe to say that I think we can all see a perfectionist within ourselves to varying degrees, depending on how aware we are of our own tendencies or not. And I think that's why it's really important to explore perfectionism, because like I said, it invites an invitation or opportunity from a soul level to really see, okay, what is the deeper why? If as a collective, this is something we can relate to each other on. We can say, yeah, I tend to be hard on myself, or yeah, I have this, tendency to want to, have things happen a certain way, or yeah, I get defensive when someone doesn't see life the way I do, right? Well, it's all for a reason. Um, and I think it can be one of the most challenging things to really find our center, and why I wanted to talk about this. Um, so much of our culture actually reinforces perfectionism at a really young age. Who remembers going to school and being in these like time tested environments where you had 25 minutes to take a spelling test that you were to study for the night before, and depending on how many you got right, you got a grade that either puts you on a star chart for success in the school year, or you didn't get a star and you felt really bad about yourself. you know so I know probably everybody's had an experience like that. And it's just a reinforcement of how our culture really supports this kind of self-critical judgment being hard, and then also kind of fearing an experience where we fail, where this may happen again. So we're gonna look at this, right? Because it's super easy to come into this space of bad, good, right, wrong, and so much more. So we're going to look at this, and we're going to understand really what is the root cause of perfectionism. I'm going to talk about it a little bit, and we're going to take a break right now. And when we come back, we're going to dive right into that root cause of perfectionism. So we'll be right back.
Hey everybody, it's Tommy D, the nonprofit sector connector, coming at you from my attic. Each week here on talkradio.nyc, I host a program, Philanthropy in Focus. Nonprofits impact us each and every day, and it's my focus to help them amplify their message and tell their story. Listen each week at 10 a.m. Eastern Standard Time until 11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, right here on talkradio.nyc.
Were you an essential worker during the pandemic? If you needed to learn stages of epilepsy, did you depend on advocates? Did you use new innovations to cope with mental and neurological issues? Maintaining high quality of life and keeping good mental health are what we all strive for. I'm Frank R. Harrison, host of Frank About Health, and each week top healthcare influencers, professionals, and innovators answer these questions and more. Stay tuned on Thursdays at 5 p.m. on talkradio.nyc, and I will continue to be frank about health with all of you.
Are you a business owner? Do you want to be a business owner? Do you work with business owners? Hi, I'm Stephen Fry, your small and medium-sized business or SMB guy, and I'm the host of the new show, Always Friday. While I love to have fun on my show, we take those Friday feelings of freedom and clarity to discuss popular topics on the minds of SMBs today. Please join me and my various special guests on Friday at 11 a.m. on talkradio.nyc.
You're listening to Talk Radio NYC at www.talkradio.nyc. Now broadcasting 24 hours a day.
Welcome back to Nourish the Soul. So glad to be here. I'm Elizabeth Tripp, your host. I wanted to also let you guys know something really exciting before I dive back in to the root here of perfectionism. Nourish the Soul is on all major podcasting platforms, iHeart, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Amazon Music. So if you miss an episode, it's your opportunity to get subscribed to my podcast and to kind of use that as an opportunity to, on the go, wherever you are, download and listen to the episodes of your choice. So I would love if you would consider that, because then more people get to experience the show. And I certainly feel that the kind of messaging we're bringing out here is really powerful and potent, because our bodies, they will tell us when we are full on in the programming of perfectionism. We're going to talk a little bit about this a little bit later in the show, but certainly through all the emotional upheavals that perfectionism can cause, right? This need for control, this, having to be right, this feeling of defensiveness, this, questioning of our self-worth, this analyzation of other people's perceptions of us. My goodness, it can cause so much stress and overwhelm. And we're going to talk a little later about how that can affect us physically, and let us know when there's something we really need to transform. But I wanted to ask, how many of us have been through an experience where we felt judged or criticized by someone and we took it personally? I believe we talked about this last week on the previous episode, and then made a judgment of ourselves, leading us to feel self-conscious. Well, let's just not go back to like the recent 5 years, let's think back into our past. Let's go into our little, you know, boys and girl childhood here, our little selves, because in my client sessions, this is where I actually start to see the roots of perfectionism, where they're actually planted, you know, um, in their upbringings, within their family homes and dynamics, whether it was mildly dysfunctional or, highly dysfunctional, because I personally don't believe that any family is actually perfect, regardless if someone says that. There's dysfunction in everybody. Um, at some point early in their life, in their childhood experience, something happened. We've been through a trauma. Nobody got like like didn't, they got nobody got saved from that. And that's important to know. And something compromised our sense of safety. And that could be just a chaotic home. There's a lot of fighting. There's a lot of, reactivity. There could be an anxious parent or parents. With anxious parents, then there's a level of hypersensitivity or helicopter parenting, or the need to be in control of a lot of aspects due to worry, and that can really impact the child, because we want to remember children are like sponges. They're really like taking in everything, because this is like their first glimpse through this perspective of what life is. And so what I've seen case after case with all my clients, and I can't even believe it, I probably have done thousands of client sessions, thousands, and 8 years, thousands. Um, what happens is, these as children, we learn to compensate for, this feeling of insecurity we could have in this chaos that we're perceiving. A reactive parent, a controlling parent, a worried parent. Um, and we start to learn to adjust ourselves for that experience. Because what child wants to feel bad or made to feel wrong, or think they're doing something to upset their parent? Very natural. So we start to modify ourselves and modify how we share ourselves with, our closest family members, in an effort ultimately to feel safe, right? Because something happens within our experience and we feel unsafe. We feel insecure in our environment. And we're not blaming the parents. Certainly, we in fact chose our parents. Louise Hay said that in 1989, 2024 at this point, we've all heard we choose our parents, right? And for a purpose. So we're choosing them and things happen and we become afraid of something that we experience with them based off of an element that they're expressing of reactivity or control. And this is where the root begins. Because if we are compromised in our safety at any point in our life, we are continuously compensating for that. And through that compensation, right, modifying ourselves, chameleoning ourselves to be something for somebody else, to not disrupt the peace or, to create more chaos, right? We don't have any power. And ultimately, some kids grow up to be teenagers, and that's why they rebel. They want that power, right? Only causing probably more destruction in the household. But that inner critic, right, starts to grasp a hold of us. Don't do that. You should do this. We start to analyze the environment around us, their behaviors, their actions. We start to get to know when to talk, when not to, what to do and what not to do, what's right, what's wrong. And so we get programmed very early on. And it takes an awareness of this because our school environments reinforce this. Our social cultural expectations reinforce this. How many people believe that our friends should be there for us at all costs and listen to their problems no matter what? And yet we see our friends don't change. They stay in the same spot. And we continuously give our time and energy thinking that if we do this, we are good. So we are trying to prove our worth. That is a perfectionist. Whereas somebody who knows their value can speak up and say, hey, I've given you this advice. I've given you the opportunity to find solutions and you're not choosing it. So I'm no longer going to enable you anymore. It takes a lot of strength and courage. And a lot of perfectionists are afraid of that because of the judgment. But that's the inner work. Because it's challenging for a perfectionist to learn to let their guard down, to really feel fully relaxed and completely themselves. Because there's this current of fear that hasn't been processed. And it needs to be addressed because it's gonna rear itself. But often what we do is we actually find the norms, quote unquote, in our culture, like drinking and drugs and getting busy and working harder and checking off our list of everything we're supposed to achieve in order to be on par with the Joneses. And or we could go to the opposite spectrum and totally rebel and go wild and say, screw it, I'm gonna live this life like everybody else. And we can put ourselves into a position where we are in squander because we don't believe in rules and regulations. So it can go both ways, and it's so crazy. So be thinking about it in your own life where you see this. Because if we don't have this sense of security, we don't have our power. And from that, a perfectionist seeks control. It is so natural, supernatural. Of course, you're going to want control, because the lack of safety in turn is creating, this false sense that, who you are and how you are isn't right because we've judged ourselves based off of a experience we had with somebody else. And when we're 8, the world of adults can look a whole lot bigger than ourselves. And of course, we take their opinion to heart. But the most beautiful part about this is that this is the design of our soul. Everything is perfect just as it is. That means our childhood experiences, our parents, the trauma, the things we went through. And the argument I can already hear is, but this happened to me. And we can talk about real specific traumatic events. But I have helped so many people, even people who have been sexually abused by their parents, to understand on the soul level what that experience was truly meant for them, to understand about themselves. Because there is, when we slow down and are able to come out of our head and into our bodies, we can start to get aware of our own perspectives that we've held that keep us limited in understanding the true vastness of ourselves, our true value. And we can get so caught up in what we think we should be doing and how others are doing it. And so they become our measure, that we all of a sudden fail to see what we're here to really learn. And the body suddenly takes the brunt, because it will. And it's why the body is the solution to every problem we have, because it will tell you when you need to change. It will tell you through your aches and pains and dis-ease, you need to change. It's incredibly powerful when you invite this into your life. So I want to ask you before we take a quick break, have any of you ever struggled with feeling uncomfortable with fully being yourself? Have you ever changed who you are when you're with someone else to make them feel comfortable? And do you struggle with wanting to keep peace by sacrificing your comfort so others are happy around you? We're going to go into this subject even more in our last segment. Let's take a quick break. We'll be right back.
Are you a high-achieving, growth-oriented leader? Are you interested in developing your authentic leadership while creating a healthy, inclusive workplace? Hi, I'm Dr. Mira Brancu, host of The Hard Skills on talkradio.nyc at 5 p.m. Eastern on Tuesdays, where we discuss how leaders develop the hard skills needed to make a greater impact. We interview experts, have live coaching, and tackle these challenges. Listen to The Hard Skills on Tuesday at 5 p.m. Eastern on talkradio.nyc.
Hey everybody, it's Tommy D, the nonprofit sector connector, coming at you from my attic. Each week here on talkradio.nyc, I host a program, Philanthropy in Focus. Nonprofits impact us each and every day, and it's my focus to help them amplify their message and tell their story. Listen each week at 10 a.m. Eastern Standard Time until 11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, right here on talkradio.nyc.
Are you a conscious co-creator? Are you on a quest to raise your vibration and your consciousness? I'm Sam Leibowitz, your conscious consultant, and on my show, The Conscious Consultant Hour, Awakening Humanity, we will touch upon all these topics and more. Listen live at our new time on Thursdays at 12 noon Eastern Time. That's The Conscious Consultant Hour, Awakening Humanity, Thursdays 12 noon on talkradio.nyc.
You're listening to Talk Radio NYC at www.talkradio.nyc. Now broadcasting 24 hours a day.
Wow, we are back for our last segment here. The show is just speeding by and rich with a lot of wisdom. And I want to remind you, if you are someone who is spiritually curious and really seeking a community you can call home, please visit our community, the Inner Light Tribe. You can just type that in, Inner Light Tribe. And here you're going to find an array of opportunities, a collection of meditations and training videos, and a place where you can connect with like minded to be able to awaken to your heart and embrace your true power, which is exactly what we're talking about today. So that's the Inner Light Tribe. And I really look forward to seeing you there. So we're just, dissembling the perfectionist, right? And I want to share in this last segment a little bit about my own personal story, just a brief kind of insight. Um, you know, my inner perfectionist got rooted in childhood, like I've been speaking about, because the nature of my home environment was that my both of my parents had to work, to be able to, keep our lifestyle at a certain level that they were, that they wanted for us, which I'm very grateful for. And during the summer times, I had my older siblings taking care of me, which, the age difference is my 8 years, my oldest brother, to 5 years, my sister, to 3 years, my second oldest brother, and then me. Um, and so I remember, just there were brief moments where I remember looking around in the summertime and seeing complete chaos. I mean, my older brother fighting with my older but younger brother. And, there was just lack of boundaries and appropriateness of what should be going on when obviously our parents weren't home. And because I'm so sensitive to environment, to energy, I felt this chaos. And it left me with a feeling of insecurity. And I had no one to sit down and process with me what I was seeing on a daily basis. Sometimes really big arguments and fights and screaming, like any kids would do if they were left on their own. And it just, it affected me, but for a reason, for a purpose. I didn't have that sense of peace within myself after that point. And I didn't recognize it, but I began to really start to observe others and the environment and my behavior and chameleon myself to make sure that I was unslaved from any of the chaos I was seeing. And I did. I did a great job at it. But I learned the skill set, to kind of change myself for others, which built in my journey. I also never released this insecurity I started to feel and sought food for comfort. And in that seeking, I gained weight and got picked on and teased. And guess what? It really hurt my self esteem. And I remember feeling like everybody else had the power to fix me. That if I just lost the weight, I would be liked or lovable or beautiful. If I just, was able to show others that I could succeed at something, go above and beyond everybody else, then I would be seen as smart and good. So it's exactly what I did. And this programming served me. I mean, I've out exceeded so many people. And I'll say that very honestly and humbly, because in the same breath, it caused me so much stress, so much overwhelm, so much tension. My physical body, I've had, GI issues. I've had tension in my shoulders and neck. I've had, imbalances within my body. I've had, different things show up with unknown reason and cause other than just being stressed consistently, chronically. So, how many of you can relate, right? Because it got to a point where I was just so broken down and fatigued and tired and so feeling as though I had given it my all to everybody else, never felt like I got the same in return, that my life had to completely overhaul and change. And it's when the universe sent me somebody that could help me. And once I started to give myself that self love that I desperately needed and cultivated a deeper sense of peace within myself, I started to recognize where those perfectionist tendencies were and began to, over time, start to break them down and reclaim my sense of power. Through my sense of safety returning, my power returned, my actions became more, intentional. I began to treat myself better, and I started to let go of people in my life that just didn't resonate. That's how I got here, this short version of that. But I really want you to be present to that, because perfectionism can wreak havoc on our bodies, especially our nervous system. Especially our nervous system, because that fear that has been planted in during that trauma that we experienced, and it can be big to some, little to others, but it's relative to how you perceived it, can change our whole system, how our body runs. So we're coming up on the close of the show, and let me just invite you, if you have more questions about perfectionism, if you have a curiosity to awaken your heart and deepen your self-love, you can always find more about who I am and what I do to support others on this journey on my website, elizabethtripp.com, and explore the opportunity that may be calling you forward to dismantle this yourself. But I wanted to read a transmission. Sometimes when I get up in the morning, I just write. And I had such a transmission yesterday. And I love it when this happens, because it shows me I've let go, I'm in the flow, right? Because as we let go of that need to control, we create that sense of security within ourselves, our power returns, our self-love starts to emulate out. We start taking actions to take care of ourselves, to better ourselves. Things are in flow because we're surrendering now to the beauty of what this life really is, no matter the circumstance. So here's the transmission. I'm going to read it. Our worthiness is not dependent on being perfect. It's not dependent on what others think, on our weight or looks, our bank account, the size of our house, how successful we are at work, as parents, or in our partnerships. Our worth is not dependent on whether we're married, single, divorced, or widowed. Doesn't matter if we came from a good upbringing or a dysfunctional one, trauma-infused household. Our worth is not measured by anything external. It cannot be determined by what we've done or what we've achieved. Our worth is inherent to who we are. It is built into our being, into the blueprint of it, and it is alive in every single one of our cells. It's in the air we breathe, in the ground we walk upon. Our worth is something we have entered into this world with, and we will leave this world with. At the heart of our self-worth lies a power we've been given to choose our truths, to accept what is real and what is not about ourselves. As perfectionists, we can't do this unless we first establish a sense of safety within ourselves, to be ourselves. Without that safety, we have no power. We won't fully relax. We won't have the confidence to let go of the control we think we need over ourselves and others. But the thing is, control is an illusion. Because if we truly know our value, we don't need to have to prove it. We know our worth, we wouldn't fear sharing ourselves, our voice, and we wouldn't compromise our integrity for someone else to be comfortable. So, do we then allow ourselves to get vulnerable with our emotions when they come up, when we choose something new than we've done in the past? Do we lean in and explore the gift of this, or do we contract, shut down, and revert to what's familiar? Perfectionists will do anything to be safe and in control, and will also do anything to avoid the fear of failure, messing up, or doing something embarrassingly wrong. But love, it surrenders. Love, it allows. It allows things to be just as they are. No need to fix, no need to make wrong, no need to change anything at all. And that's what we often miss as perfectionists. Love, self-love. So, in conclusion, I really want to thank all of you for being a part of this show. And please let me know how you're enjoying this and what other kinds of topics you may like to explore with me. I look forward to seeing you again next week. Until then, namaste.
You're listening